Stop wasting time thinking and let's start looking again. It's not a waste of time to think, for I figured out where we should look. And where would that be? I believe we should examine the television. The TV? Oh, you kids have fun. Go ahead and examine whatever you like. I'm going to find a tape in here. I won't rest until I've inspected every nook and cranny. Inside the VCR. It's a video player and there seems to be a videotape inside. Looks like it. The tape must have stopped on its own when it reached the end, which is why it had, static. This tape. Could it not be the missing surveillance tape? I suppose, but... Detective Bad, would it be alright with you if I verified the contents of this video? Sure. Knock yourself out. Alright, then let's rewind this and see what we have. If I remember correctly, the video footage of Rel killing this embassy staff member should be about the 30-minute mark from the start of the tape. Understood. It should be alright. Now let's see. This is the footage of Mr. Rel shooting this embassy staff member. I knew it. The missing piece of evidence, the surveillance video, was here all along. Closed case. This sound. What's the meaning of this? It appears that Detective Bad has figured out the true source of the gunshot he heard. With this, I think we can figure out the trick behind the murders. Do you mean that you figured it all out then? Yes. All I have to do now is show what the gunshot detectives Bad and Gumshoe heard was, and through where they heard it from. Fine. In that case, show me what you've deduced. Now to show what the gunshot detective Bad and Gumshoe heard was, and through where they heard it from. Through the window. Is this spot connected to... Yeah. Through the window, with the tape. If the door and windows to the crime scene, namely this room that we're in, were closed, the killer could have used the gun and no one would have been the wiser. That's true, this courthouse does seem to be well designed for such a thing, as it were. However, what happened in reality was, Detective Gumshoe, Detective Bad, and Miss Yu, all three of them heard the gunshot. Well, the windows in lobby number 1, 2, and the hallway were open. So naturally the people in these locations could hear it. But then, why would the criminal open the window in the first place? To allow the gunshot to be heard, I suppose. When they've already had an alibi, they're somewhere else when the gunshot goes off. Correct! That's the only logical conclusion we can draw from this. But why was that necessary in the first place? I want a real answer, Miles. I demand satisfaction. You don't get satisfaction until, like... I don't know, 1 second. 5 years from now, okay? Then you can talk about that. Very well, I believe that the killer wanted to manipulate our perception of a certain fact. What was it that the killer wanted to manipulate our perception of? When the crime took place. Timeline. The killer wanted to fabricate the time of death to their precise wishes. Because if it's 30 minutes later after it's dead, I'm accounted for 30 minutes. It was shot here. What's going on? What they didn't do was take the tape out and get rid of it. Or put it with the evidence. And they used the gunshot in the surveillance video to do so. Hype music. So that's why the tape was left running. You mean the gunshot I heard was from this video? Yes, which means that the murder really occurred at an earlier time than we thought. It must have been during the recess, but before Detective Gumshoe was on guard duty. Someone who has no alibi for that period of time. And planned this crime out in advance. That person is the real killer. Yes! Full up. Mr. Edgeworth! Yes, what is it? Miss Yu's asking for you. She's in the courtroom. She says that she's identified the murderer, but that she wants to clear something. Clarify. Looks like Miss Yu is still investigating something. Understood. Please tell her that I'll be right over. I'll come along. I want to hear what she has to say. It would appear that the time has come to uncover the truth. It has to be you. It has to be. She just happened to spill her perfume? Come on. Really? It's 100% her. 100%. September 10th, 6:15 p.m. Unless it's that one dude. That would be a meme. Okay. Okay. What are you doing here? Hello, mister. I'm still investigating. But the object you're looking for is already... Okay. Don't mind him. Please continue with your investigation. Okay, you got it. Detective Bad, haven't we already found what you were looking for? If it means I can keep her in the dark just a little longer. Any little task will do. Oh, you're more sympathetic than I thought. Huh, kids. Fuck you, kids. Thinking I'm sympathetic. I've been waiting for you, Edgeworth. I've also been waiting for the moment in which we can finally lay this case to rest. The moment in which we can finally lay this case to rest. Wasn't that when we placed Detective Gumshoe under arrest? I think we've more than solved this case already, don't you? We'll see. It all depends on whether or not your logic holds. Oh, I see. We even have a viewer in the gallery. And why even Mr. Bad is here. A viewer in the gallery? I'm hardly just a bystander. I have a duty to see this case through to the end. No matter how it turns out. Oh, is that right? Anyway, I thought you might like to hear what I've slaved away to find out. I've taken statements on every single person's movements. During the time when our suspect was in the hallway, I also confirmed that there is no possible route of escape from lobby number 2. Therefore, the killer must without a doubt be Detective Gumshoe. And that's all you have? Yeah, that's all there is to my conclusion. And this case. Sorry, but I beg to differ. In a trial, there is always time for rebuttal, and we are standing in a court of law. It will be more than appropriate to follow the rules of court in this case, don't you think? How absolutely like a rookie to think such a thing. But alright, I'll play along and give you a proper testimony. If my logic is correct, then I've already won. All I have to do now is to prove it by showing who the real killer is. It's you, Cece. It's obvious. Everyone sans the suspect has an alibi for when the gun went off. Furthermore, the areas around the crime scene have all been thoroughly investigated, right? I also confirmed that there's no possible escape route from lobby number 2. Which leaves us with one unshakable conclusion, that Detective Gumshoe's the killer. Now that you have your testimony, I expect a good rebuttal, Edgeworth. But of course, there's no need to confront her logic head-on right now. I should instead focus on drawing out any trump cards she has up her sleeve. Time of the gunshot, you say? A suspect? But I thought Detective Gumshoe's alibi has already been proven. Are you joking, Edgeworth? I assure you, this is no joke. Look, I know you heard from the judge earlier that the detective was in the hallway with Mr. Faraday's daughter eating a Swiss roll. Yes, that is correct. But see, that was 20 minutes before the real gunshot went off, right? And the problem is, there's no one else who can corroborate what he did since the snacking. I see she's done her research well, which means I should focus on drawing out whatever trump cards. Have they? Whether they have been thoroughly investigated or not isn't for me to decide. The scrunched eyebrows and the lines on your forehead are back. Anyway, even if you believe it hasn't been exhaustive, the crime scene, lobby number 2, has no way out other than the hallway Detective Gumshoe was standing in. And because he claimed to be there, that makes him the only possible suspect. But isn't it also possible that someone escaped through a window into the garden? That's the first place everyone looked silly. The police aren't a bunch of lazy bums. They looked into every possibility, you know? Isn't that right, Mr. Bad? Yeah. There wasn't a scrap of evidence to suggest someone used one of the windows. There also weren't any footprints or anything in the courtyard garden. Suppose they really did check everything that could be relevant to the case. You're absolutely positive there are no possible routes of escape? Of course I'm sure. And why are you so certain? There's a courthouse, the place where criminals are brought to be judged. If there were no escape route, I'm sure every criminal would be using it to escape. And it's just common sense. Miles Edgeworth, I suggest you use a bit more of it in the future. Ow. You may think it's unshakable, but to me, there are still too many unanswered questions. For example, who was it that placed the gun in Mr. Faraday's hand? But you're the only one still wondering that. Detective Gumshoe probably had no idea which hand Mr. Faraday used to write with. Even if you know someone, it doesn't mean you'll know which hand they write with, right? I mean, I certainly don't care about that sort of thing. I'm not about to let her get a rise out of me with such a flippant statement. I suppose we've really reached the end now. I already have my trump card ready. All that remains is to play it. But before I do, I think I should inquire into a little something about our argument. You said earlier that you confirmed the alibis of every person other than the suspect. However, I don't recall either Francisco or myself speaking with you about the subject. Oh, but there were witnesses for you. There's your mentor who gave you an alibi. I see. As for the little missy, she came to the courthouse during the recess and was stopped by a security guard at the door of the hallway. She gave him quite a whipping for that, or so I heard. I'm the daughter of Manfred von Karma, and I will not be forcibly stopped by a guard or a bailiff or anyone else. And so basically the only reason Francisca bothered to show up today was because she found out that I was to be the replacement prosecutor. By the way, Miss Yu. That's amazing. What about everyone's alibis before Detective Gumshoe was assigned to guard duty? What about them? Have you looked into what people were doing during that span of time? Ha! What kind of idiot do you take me for? It doesn't matter when the killer went into lobby number 2. From the time we heard the gunshot to the time Mr. Bad and I arrived at the scene as we dashed from lobby number 1, the only person who could have committed the crime was Detective Gumshoe. Yeah, so let's talk about when you and Detective Bad heard the gunshot, shall we? I suppose that if we go by your logic, then Detective Gumshoe is the only one. However, what if the crime had occurred at an entirely different time than when that gunshot you heard went off? What then? Ooh. That gunshot was a trap meant to manipulate our perception. Sadly, your explanation is very lacking, Mr. Edgeworth. The gunshot we heard in lobby number 1, care to explain how that could have been fabricated? Surveillance tape. That tape? Yes, it's exactly what you think it is. This is the surveillance tape of Mr. Rell, the prosecution presented in today's trial. This was found loaded in the video player in lobby number 2. That was connected to the large television and had its volume turned all the way up. You can't honestly mean that the sound we heard was the gunshot in the video. But I do, which leads me to my next point. The murders occurred much earlier than when everyone heard the gunshot. Ooh, freaking out. That's the only thing I can think of, too. After committing double homicide, the killer took the surveillance video out from Mr. Faraday's evidence bag, turned the television's volume all the way up, and let the video play. It played from the beginning. It would take 30 minutes from the gunshot to come on. And since we now know that the method of time manipulation is possible, it opens up the possibility that the killer is someone other than Detective Gumshoe. Sounds from a television doesn't amount to much here. But of course, Mr. Prosecutor Edgeworth and Little Miss Von Karma, Already knew that much from the very beginning, right? Of course we knew. Didn't we, Miles? Yes, of course. We know that about the soundproof quality of this courthouse's rooms. Of course, I'm not about to admit we have no idea until only a little while ago. That's right, and if the rooms are soundproof, then we should not have been able to hear it. Yet we heard the gunshot clear as day. And? That's end of story. But it's not. How should I explain why she was able to hear the gunshot from a soundproof room? The window was open. There's actually one common point between lobby number 1, 2, and the hallway. And it was that despite the fact that both rooms have air conditioners installed, a window was open in each. And we know that the window in lobby number 2 was opened by the killer. However, a window in lobby number 1 was also open. It's probably just a coincidence that they were both open at the time. The hallway was open too. It was no mere coincidence, I assure you. Why was the window open in lobby number 1? The answer is that a certain person did something to cause the window to be open. And the person who triggered that action, that person is the real guilty party. The real killer in this double murder is... Yes. Go to fucking hell, bitch. Miss Callisto, you. I hereby formally indict you of the murder of Mr. Faraday and Mr. Rell. What? You indict me? Are you serious, Miles? Why do you think she's the killer? I don't understand her motive just yet, but of course I'm serious. Because she is the only one who could have done it. Well, Miss Yu, do you still feel like laughing now? Of course I do, Edgeworth. My argument must not be tight enough yet. Although I never thought things would spiral into this. But I'll have you know, I'm enjoying this dance quite a bit. I guess this means it's time for my own rebuttal now, right? Yes. Come here, bitch. Easy peasy. You argue that the window was open, however, do you have any proof it was I who did that? Furthermore, do you have proof that the tape was used in the committing of the crime? Frankly, I'm shocked at you for going around accusing people of murder like this. Especially with logic as full of holes as yours. Yes, I actually do have proof that you did spill your perfume. That's where it really starts. I mustn't let my guard down for even a second or the truth will blow away. Now's the time to put the patented Von Karma perfect proof to the test. Easy peasy. She's done. Nail her! Yes, I do actually have proof of that. Where is it? Perfume. Easy. Fucking dunker. You're too easy, bitch. I'm sure you've seen this before, haven't you, Miss Yu? Ha! Edgeworth, I never knew you were into wearing that kind of perfume. It's not exactly what I'd recommend for boys, you know. What? This isn't mine. That's right, it's mine. And I received it from Detective Bad, you see. Miss Yu, you can pretend all you like, but we all know at least this much for sure. That this bottle of perfume was given to Detective Bad by you. Because it gets really strong really fast. So, what about the perfume? While you were in the lobby number 1, you made a big show of spilling some of the perfume. That's according to Detective Bad. Oh, I know. You also knew that if you spilled it, he would naturally move to open a window. Come now, I've already told you that all is just a big coincidence. After we opened the window in lobby number 1, I just left it open, you know? So maybe it's just dumb luck that we heard the gunshot through the window. The timing of when you were going to spill the perfume is something you could control. And the most important fact about this case is when people were made to hear the shot. Furthermore, it would have been pointless if you didn't have an alibi for yourself at the time. You mean? Miss Yu, you were the one who called Detective Bad into lobby number 1. When you saw him bring Detective Gumshoe into the hallway. Is that correct? All of today's premeditated events could only have been thought up by you, Miss Yu. You accuse me of murder on the fact that I spilled a little perfume. Well, allow me to say this much. I couldn't have killed Mr. Faraday. Would you care to testify as to why? Look, I've had a lot of fun today, really. But I grow weary of this game of cat and mouse. Let's make this the last testimony, wrap up this absurd case once and for all. My pleasure. I want to dunk you so hard. Accusing someone of murder over a spilled bottle of perfume is a bit over the top. But I suppose forgery of evidence is to be expected of a disciple of Von Karma. In any case, it simply could not have been me who killed Mr. Faraday. After all, I don't even know where the knife that was used to kill him came from. Miles, her testimony is flawless. No, I think she knows. Yes, but no matter what sort of trick she may try to pull, she won't escape me. And if I'm lacking information, I'll just draw it out of her. What forged evidence? You did spill the perfume. The tape was in there. I formally request that you desist in your attack against my mentor. Yes, or we'll sue you for defamation. All I'm doing is telling the truth. Well, maybe more like spreading gossip. Although your adamant denials are, shall we say, just adding fuel to the fire. How dare you? Say such a thing. Calm down, little girl. Don't let her get to you. Oh, why did you have to ruin my fun? Shall we continue? At this rate, she will inevitably escape. But she really was the one to kill Faraday, and she must know about the existence of the knife. I'm sorry, Miss Yu, maybe you weren't aware. However, the knife that was used to kill Mr. Faraday was taken from his evidence bag. Miles, what do you think you're doing? I'm drawing the truth out of her. That's what I'm doing. Huh, but I don't recall a knife being presented at the trial earlier today. Well, I suppose that's because the evidence was something Mr. Faraday had yet to use. So that's what you're trying to do? Look, why don't you cut it out with the lies? I've already figured you out. There was no knife inside Mr. Faraday's evidence bag. The only evidence he had yet to present was the key that the great thief had sent. And unless a key can magically turn into a knife, you really don't have a leg to stand on. Did you really think you could trap me? Come now, be honest. I never intended to do such a thing. It was all a misunderstanding on my part. In any case, I wonder if you might have penned what you just said to your testimony. Sure, why not? I'll even say it as many times as you'd like. Oof. Brutal. 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 Sorry, I'm gonna plunge this key into you. Miss Yu, I wonder if you might take a look at this photo for me. There's a picture of the key the great thief sent to the police. However, while it may look like a key at first glance, it in fact has the secret ability to transform into a knife. Which means that what was inside Mr. Faraday's bag was both the key and the murderous knife. You knew that the key was inside Mr. Faraday's bag, did you not? Yes. Well, with that key alone, it's more than possible to kill Mr. Faraday. Do you understand now? Just knowing of the existence of the key. Hello? I still haven't had a good look at it. Showing it to me from that far away, you could be lying for all I know. You would, even now, still feign ignorance? Ha! I'm not feigning anything. Well, we can't have you accusing me of a crime with false evidence now, can we? I mean, Mr. Von Karma, I've heard some very interesting rumors about him. Are you mocking my papa? Don't you dare sully the good name of my mentor. And take a good look at this piece of evidence if it's more than real. Wow, who knew there was such a trick to this thing? Are you satisfied now? Well, of course you knew from the very beginning, didn't you? You knew that the knife and the key are one and the same. Otherwise, someone like you, who isn't a member of the law enforcement and who would have never been privy to this trick. Would have never known about it to begin with. Furthermore, there's something that the Great Thief sent to the police. How did he know knowledge as to what it was? Actually, I heard it from Mr. Faraday. Just before he dragged Mr. Rel off, he told me. Okay. Oh, that's right, I almost forgot. He also told me about the key turning into a knife at the time. But he didn't tell me about how the key actually transforms. This is bullshit. What are you saying is simply not possible. Oh, and why not? Because Mr. Faraday himself didn't know about the hidden knife himself within the key. For within these pages, he mentions nothing about a knife. I'm not sure he would have written everything in his organizer, you know. He wouldn't something of this importance be better left to oral communication? Unfortunately, that's also impossible. Because Detective Bad didn't know about the knife aspect either. What would have been highly classified information even within the police force. And it's something that even the lead detective on the case didn't know. Why would Mr. Faraday have felt the need to share such information with the opposition? Well, legally you're supposed to, but that's not important. Yeah, I guess he wouldn't have much of a reason to. Looks like I gave a pretty lame excuse, huh? How can you laugh at a time like this? She'd probably just realized the flaw in her logic and is actually in a panic over it. But that's not something we need to concern ourselves with. I suppose you're right. Miss Yu, I'd like to state that I also know how you knew the real nature of the knife. Do you now? Well, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and show me? Oh, I will, and I wipe that smile off your face by the time we're through. This at the moment of truth, the secret behind the key. Only one person who would have knowledge from it from the get-go. Who would know from the start that the key could change into a knife? She's not. Fuck off. She's literally... She's not. She's not this dude. It's Faraday. There's only one person who could have known about the dual nature of the knife. Then how does Kay become the Great Thief? And that is the person who sent the key to the police. That's to say, the Great Thief herself. Are you saying that this lawyer is the Great Thief? Miss Yu, you used Mr. Rel to lure Mr. Faraday into a trap, didn't you? You, who profess to bear a grudge against criminals, why do you do something like this? Like, there's no way she is. Who would have thought that you, a stupid rookie prosecutor, would see through me? You're sending the biggest chill down my spine right now, Edgeworth. This feeling of thrill. It's even greater than when I sneak into someplace. You killed Faraday. Why? Answer me, Callisto Yu. Callisto Yu, huh? That's not my real name. Because my real identity is, yes, the Great Thief. Let me tell you something, Edgeworth. Mr. Faraday was one difficult man to deal with. For you see, he had discovered my true identity, which is why I had to erase him from the world of law. I made Rel an offer, an acquittal for a little favor in return. All he had to do was accuse Mr. Faraday of being the Great Thief in court. But once we entered the recess, Rel was dragged off by Mr. Faraday, which threw my plan into a complete mess. I chased after them and eavesdropped on them through a crack in the door. That Rel caves to only two things, money and authority, just as all thugs do. I feared my plan was going to be ruined if Mr. Faraday held onto Rel any longer. Plus, if I let them continue on the way they were, I would have been found out. That's why I had no choice. I had to kill both of them. But didn't you say that you despise criminals? But do I really? You. You've forgotten about the KG8 incident too? Maybe. What sort of woman would? So then, was it your plan to kill Mr. Faraday with the very evidence that you sent? Well, I had a good idea of what Mr. Faraday was going to do. I anticipate that Mr. Faraday was going to prove that Rel wasn't the real Great Thief by using the key as evidence, and that he would bring it with him. Which is why I thought to use the knife portion. With a weapon as well disguised as this, no one would be the wiser. Because who in their right mind would think something like this could be a weapon? I casually entered lobby number 2 on the pretext that I had to talk with Mr. Faraday. In order to get in with him, I pretended to be worried about something. He then let me hold the key, just like that. He never noticed that I had changed the key into a knife, inside that plastic bag. And he didn't have the chance to take note of the knife that took his life. How could you kill him? I knew him for a long time, you know. At the very least, I thought to give him a quick and painless death. But if you killed Mr. Faraday first, then there was no need for you to kill Mr. Rel as well. I believe I mentioned why when we were placing Detective Gumshoe under arrest. Something about having accidentally created an eyewitness. And how that led to the killer to think about setting them up as though they'd killed each other. And the trick with the surveillance tape. Yes, I hadn't actually planned to use a gun. The risk was too high that I'd be caught. However, that was when I remembered the existence of that surveillance tape. Which is why I had Rel help me set up the crime scene. And after all that was said and done, I rewarded him for all his hard work with a bullet. You're a defense attorney, aren't you? How could you betray your client? Client? If you want to talk about who's the client of who's first, it was me. I was the client in the murder of the embassy staff member, the dead man. You ordered a hit job? You still haven't figured it out, Mr. Bad. I had Dead man killed because he was about to give away info about the smuggling ring. Now, who exactly do you think would benefit from such an assassination? Can't be. You're... That's right. I'm a member of the smuggling ring. What? How could this... You don't mean... You're working with Manny Cochin too, or do you? Maybe, maybe not. Guess you'll never know. The Great Thief claims to be noble, but you're just another cold-blooded murderer. Ha ha! That's right, little girl. The Great Thief is just another killer. Be quiet, you. Great Thief, you can run from the law, but you'll never escape it. So just humbly accept the judgment of this court. No. Hey, Edgeworth. Did you know the Great Thief has 3 legs? Do you know why that is? No. Well, let me tell you. Probably because when one's caught, you cut it off and you can keep running. It means that the has more than one razor-sharp way to do her work. What? Bad? Bad! You really are too naive, Edgeworth. You even handed the key right to me without a second thought. Everything may not have gone according to plan, but I'll still gladly take it. Bad. You mean the key was your real target? And even after I gave you such a great advice, didn't I tell you to always keep a good eye on a criminal? Or you may regret what comes to you of your negligence. You two, get down. Ha ha. My body, I can't move. Hey, mister, to your right. You. Thanks, Kay. Are you alright, Francisca? I'm perfectly fine, Miles. Her voice is shaking, but it looks like she's unharmed. Where'd Kay go? That's a gunshot. That's 2. Still needs like 3 or 4 more.